Welcome to this Introduction to the Elevating Enterprise Architecture online course, more commonly referred to as EEA. This program has been designed to provide you with an overview of the EEA course, which, due to its popular demand, is now available on an e-learning platform, in addition to the traditional face-to-face classroom workshops that are already available. Architecting the Enterprise also provides bespoke EEA workshops for private delivery, which focus in on the specific needs of the organisation and can be delivered on your premises. More information can be found at the end of this programme or by visiting our website at architecting-the-enterprise.com. I'm Keith Flanigan, and I'm the lead author and primary instructor for the EEA programme. If you were undertaking one of our traditional classroom-based workshops, we might be meeting in person. Prior to joining Architecting the Enterprise, I ran my own consultancy company that specialised in organisational leadership and management development, specifically working with organisations that were going through major transitions or had recently experienced major change. I also spent a significant amount of my early career in the British military, where I led people and teams through transformations and change, often under arduous conditions. During my time at Architecting the Enterprise, I have built up a healthy empathy with the problems faced by architects working across all of the domains and in many of the different industries. I have noticed a commonality in what the majority of architects report when it comes to steering successful projects through the business, and that is, when proposing architecture-driven programs to the business, it's really difficult to secure buy-in from non-technologists who don't understand architecture or its value. Additionally, it can also be very difficult to secure sponsorship from non-technologists when making recommendations based on stipulated business requirements. I would now like to invite you to watch a video clip. The clip is presented by Gartner Enterprises, notably two of their senior analysts, Betsy Burton and Anne Lapkin. In the clip, Betsy and Anne will report their findings taken from surveys they've conducted with architectural teams and businesses across the industrial space. You may find it useful to make a few notes on the salient points made by both analysts as they talk about how some businesses consider architecture and architects in general. There will be questions for you to answer at the end, but of course, you can pause and replay the video as many times as you wish.
I'm Betsy Burton, and I'm a distinguished analyst within Gartner's Enterprise Architecture team.
I'm Anne Lapkin. I'm a Vice President of Research in Gartner's Enterprise Architecture practice. The role of enterprise architects and enterprise architecture has changed dramatically over the last 15 or 20 years. It used to be that architecture was really about IT convenience. It was about simplifying the IT environment, reducing the number of things that the IT folks had to worry about. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really do it for the business. The business isn't concerned about making IT's job easier. It's concerned about business results. So what we see is that architects are moving, whether they'd like to or not, into the business realm and into an understanding of how they can actually enable business outcomes rather than just worry about IT.
Today what we see is since IT and business are becoming much more closely linked, more than aligned, enterprise architecture is having a much more profound role within organizations in terms of driving how they support technology, how they support information, and how they support their business. As a result, the role of an enterprise architecture and the skills of an enterprise architect over the next 5 years are going to have to be much more focused on how they communicate enterprise architecture and the value of enterprise architecture within the organization. This means developing skills having to do with empathy and communication and being able to educate and really evangelize the role of enterprise architecture within their organization.
One of the questions that I get from clients most often is, how do I express the value of my enterprise architecture? And one of the things we've learned is that most enterprise architecture teams do a really bad job of explaining the value of enterprise architecture to the business. They don't put it in business terms. They don't express the value of enterprise architecture in terms of business outcomes, and they don't talk about what real impact they're going to have on the business. So when we look at the best practices of enterprise architecture, I would have to say that the three things that come to the top of the list are: number one, to understand your value proposition in terms of what you're delivering to your business; number two, to set up a formal communications discipline to be able to communicate that value to the business and to your other stakeholders; and number three, to put in place some concrete measurements so that you can actually demonstrate that you're delivering value to the business.
We recently did a survey at Gartner's Enterprise Architecture Summit with a number of clients and asked them to identify their top three concerns or top three challenges in supporting enterprise architecture. And it was really interesting, overwhelming. The top issues that people have in enterprise architecture have to do with finding people of the right skills and being able to understand their business need and value of enterprise architecture. It was really fascinating. It was almost at a rate of about 4 to 1. The focus and the requirements having to do with business and people's skills over the technology issues. I'm not saying that the technology issues aren't important and the information management issues are not important. They are. But overwhelming, the top issues have to do with: how do I find the right skills? How do I bring people together to focus in on enterprise architecture? And how do I make sure that enterprise architecture is supporting my business goals and objectives?
In order to be successful from an architectural perspective, you have to understand what the business is doing, and you have to be able to engage with them in business terms. That's difficult for architects because most of them are technologists and they don't feel comfortable necessarily treading in that business space. We advise our clients very often that the best training they can give their architecture teams is to send them to a 2-day facilitation course so that they learn how to facilitate decision-making across the stakeholders rather than try and make all the decisions themselves.
We speak to a lot of organizations who try to take their enterprise architecture and control how people work and how users work within their organization by setting standards or setting patterns for how they should be working. And what we're seeing is it's a new day. The digital natives, the digital immigrants, users are making many more decisions within their enterprise, and they have the ability to drive forward business value. Today what we see is those users have an ability, if you're trying to control them, to break out of those molds and really, in essence, affect and change your enterprise architecture. Rather than trying to control those users, rather than try to mandate what they should be doing, what enterprise architects should do is empower and enable change within the organization. This is a fundamental shift in how we've approached enterprise architecture in the past, which is not just empowering the business, not just empowering IT, but empowering the individual person within your organization to deliver the highest business value.
The role of enterprise architects and enterprise architecture has changed dramatically over the last 15 or 20 years. It used to be that architecture was really about IT convenience. It was about simplifying the IT environment, reducing the number of things that the IT folks had to worry about. But at the end of the day, that doesn't really do it for the business. The business isn't concerned about making IT's job easier. It's concerned about making IT's job easier. It's concerned about business results. So what we see is that architects are moving, whether they'd like to or not, into the business realm and into an understanding of how they can actually enable business outcomes rather than just worry about IT.
And the skills of an enterprise architect over the next 5 years are going to have to be much more focused on how they communicate enterprise architecture and the value of enterprise architecture within the organization. This means developing skills having to do with This means developing skills having to do with empathy and communication and being able to educate and really evangelize the role of enterprise architecture within their organization.
In order to be successful from an architectural perspective, you have to understand what the business is doing, and you have to be able to engage with them in business terms. That's difficult for architects because most of them are technologists and they don't feel comfortable necessarily treading in that business space. We advise our clients very often that the best training they can give their architecture teams is to send them to a 2-day facilitation course so that they learn how to facilitate decision-making across the stakeholders rather than try and make all the decisions themselves.
So the messages are clear. The role of the enterprise architect has changed in that they are now expected to be able to communicate with the business and to do so in business terms. Businesses are not really concerned with IT, they're concerned about results, and architects must also remember that stakeholders right across the business will have their own private concerns when it comes to minimizing their own personal risk, and will only buy into propositions that meet with their own needs as well as the needs of the business. Architects must develop skills in empathy to demonstrate that they are aware of the needs of the business and their key stakeholders, so that they can communicate to both using a language that can be understood, particularly when communicating the value of their architecture to non-technologists. Most architects do a really bad job at explaining the value of architecture to the business. If value propositions are not seen to be aligned with the business and the personal needs of the stakeholders, then it's unlikely that they will ever be bought into, and sponsorship will not be gained. And architects need to be able to empower the business leaders to enable transformations to occur that are aligned not just to the needs of the business, but to everyone who will sponsor them. As Gartner have reported, the business is concerned with business results. During the run-up to the 2012 Gartner CIO Leadership Forum, Gartner announced the top 10 business priorities identified following the survey of major global corporates, and found a common focus for the forthcoming 12 months that is concentrated on 3 key areas. The first area of focus is growth. Businesses are seeking to grow their operations by developing innovative products and services while simultaneously expanding their customer base and stretching their global reach. Perhaps not surprisingly, given the raw nature of the global economy, another top focus area is to minimize expenditure by reducing costs, but doing so whilst improving profit margins. And the third area of focus is based around risk. I'm sure you'll agree that expanding the enterprise through the delivery of new products and services, whilst attempting to reduce costs in a temperamental global economy, carries a significant risk to the business. And this really is where the deployment of the architect's business skills can add value. Because what no one in the business will tell you is that there is another key area of concern that key stakeholders will focus on at a conscious and subconscious level, and that is to minimize the amount of personal risk to themselves. And it is vital that the architect always keeps this hidden concern at the forefront of their mind when dealing with their stakeholders. When mapping your stakeholders, it is essential that you understand what motivates them on an intrapersonal level. What do they worry about? What are their secret concerns? What motivates each one of them to act, and how freely do they express this? The key is to get inside the stakeholder's head and really see things from their perspective. And when I say things, I mean everything. It's unlikely that your stakeholders will be willing to share their hopes and fears with you on a personal level, but you are at a distinct advantage if you can develop a trusting relationship with them so that they may feel comfortable disclosing some of their true feelings. We can accomplish this by building rapport through being empathetic to every aspect of their situation, and importantly, by making them aware that you fully understand their views and viewpoints by talking to them in their own language. The ability to lead, communicate, and empower the business are essential skills irrespective of the architectural methodology that you may wish to use. TOGAP, for example, recognises this and lists some of these tools as a requirement in their skills matrix. However, it should not be taken for granted that these skills are already in place, nor that they can never be ignored if you are attempting to secure sponsorship from your stakeholders, particularly the non-technologists who don't necessarily understand nor even care about which methodology you're choosing to employ. Moreover, initiating in-depth discussions around architectural methodologies with non-technologists may well have an adverse effect upon your proposal. If your key stakeholders can't quickly see the value of your methodology, then they may consider you to be talking at them rather than to them, which does not help strengthen the relationship that you really do need to develop. So we at Architecting the Enterprise have developed the Elevating Enterprise Architecture Workshop and online course for architects, IT specialists and other professionals working alongside architecture teams. We believe that architecture is essentially about change and transformation. In TOGAF terms, the architecture as is and the architecture to be. In order to assist the business in reaching its own strategic objectives, architects need to understand the concept of change management from an architectural and business perspective, so the principles of change management are vitally important in successful architectures. In order to lead change, architects must be readily equipped with a suitable portfolio of leadership skills. Architects are expected to lead not only their teams and their stakeholders, but also themselves. So we believe that architectural leadership is key to business alignment and the fulfillment of successful architecture programs. Furthermore, the architect must be able to communicate the value of architecture and their propositions in terms that the business understands. Architects must develop skills in areas such as empathy and rapport to demonstrate their understanding of the business objectives and the strategic vision, so that the final stages of development enables the architect to empower the business through successful transformation or indeed series of transformations. The EEA online course and workshops are aimed to equip architects and other associated professionals with a defined toolbox of business skills to complement their technical knowledge, which enables their personal and professional function and enables them to communicate and present ideas to the business. We understand that you are already professionally proficient. Our desire is to help you to succeed with your stakeholders by gaining their buy-in to the proposals that you make, by equipping you with a toolbox which should assist you in almost every eventuality. You will quickly become skilled at knowing which tools to employ at the right time and with the right stakeholder. The Elevating Enterprise Architecture online course and workshops cover the 3 areas of focus which we believe will help you to become more successful when leading, communicating to, and empowering your key stakeholders to not only buy into your value propositions, but to willingly sponsor them to a successful outcome. It is essential that you understand your own motivating drivers and how you are perceived as a professional architect if you want to attract a followership of stakeholders and members of the architecture team. Therefore, the first area of focus is leadership. You must be able to lead yourself before others will follow. To achieve this, the EEA leadership module concentrates on the personal drivers that we all have, even at a very basic level, which, provided they are satisfied, will lead to the fulfillment of higher motivators. Studies have shown that people with higher levels of what's known as emotional intelligence commonly tend to do well in business as well as in life in general. Emotional intelligence is concerned with self and social management in a way that motivates others and attracts them to you so that they may be more willing to at least listen to your proposals. In order to articulate your vision of the future, however big or small that may be, you must be able to communicate effectively with your key stakeholders. Effective communication is more than just writing proposals and reading them out during a presentation. It's about the holistic approach to interacting with others, so that you can pick up on the terminology used, read the body language being portrayed, and develop the rapport which is essential when attempting to sell ideas to the business, because people buy things from people that they like, and simply put, people like people who are like themselves. The final EEA module concentrates on empowering the stakeholders to sponsor and champion your project so that it becomes successful. Even today, the Standish Group's latest Chaos report states that less than 50% of IT projects never make it to planned completion. One of the main reasons for this is directly due to the lack of support from the sponsors. The Empowerment module will help you direct your stakeholders down the path which you want them to walk. Architecting the Enterprise is pleased to announce that the Institute of Leadership and Management, the UK's foremost leadership and management qualifications body, has endorsed the Elevating Enterprise Architecture online course and the workshops, having concluded that the course objectives and the way in which they are met are at a level that meets their own criteria for recognition. It is estimated that the online course takes approximately 16 to 24 hours to complete. The online course and the workshops are designed to be interactive through a series of exercises that not only add value, but will provide you with a platform from which to elevate the status of not only your architecture team, but also yourself within your own organisation. I'll leave you with a few comments that were made by architects who have previously attended the EEA workshops. If you want to be successful, develop strong relationships and gain sponsorship from your key stakeholders, and elevate yourself and your architecture practice from within your own organisation, it's essential that you undertake our EEA online course or attend one of our many planned workshops. Contact details will appear soon, and you may find that you're eligible for a discounted rate. Thank you for taking part in this programme, and I hope to see you soon.